The thrift store on the outskirts of town was never particularly busy, and for good reason. It was dark, dusty, and smelled of old clothes and mildew. But it was there that a group of friends stumbled upon a mysterious board game that would change their lives forever. The game was called The Lost Kingdom, and it was unlike anything they had ever seen before. The box was ornately decorated with gold and silver embossing, and the board itself was made of an ancient-looking wood, with intricate carvings and symbols etched into its surface. The friends, a group of 5 in their late 20s, were intrigued. They had always been fans of board games, but this one seemed different somehow. It called to them, almost as if it had a life of its own. Without really knowing why, they pooled their money and bought the game. It wasn't until they got it home and started playing that they realized just how cursed it truly was. The first thing they noticed was that the game seemed to be alive. The pieces moved on their own, sometimes in ways that defied the laws of physics. The dice rolled in unexpected directions, and the cards seemed to shuffle themselves. At first, the friends thought it was just a glitch or some sort of elaborate prank. But as they progressed through the game, they began to realize that it was much more than that. The game had a mind of its own, and it was not happy. As they played, they found themselves transported to a strange world, a lost kingdom that had been forgotten by time. It was a place of darkness and shadows, where strange creatures lurked around every corner. The friends quickly realized that they were not alone in this world. There were other players, just like them, who had been trapped in the game for what seemed like centuries. These players were not friendly, and they would stop at nothing to prevent the friends from completing the game and breaking the curse. The stakes were high, and the consequences were deadly. If they failed to complete the game, they would be trapped in the Lost Kingdom forever, doomed to wander its twisted and cursed halls for all eternity. But if they succeeded, they would be granted a wish, anything they desired. It was a tempting offer, but one that came at a great price. The game was designed to test the players, to push them to their limits, and to reveal their darkest fears and desires. As they played, the friends found themselves facing their worst nightmares, and they were forced to confront the darkest parts of themselves. One friend, Alex, was plagued by a fear of drowning. In the game, he was trapped in an underwater cave, with no hope of escape. He could feel the water closing in around him, suffocating him, and he knew that if he didn't find a way out soon, he would die. Another friend, Sarah, was forced to face her guilt over a past mistake. In the game, she was confronted by a twisted version of herself, a version that taunted her with all of her worst fears and insecurities. As they played, the friends began to realize that the game was not just a simple board game. It was a portal to another world, a world that was ruled by a malevolent force, one that had been waiting for them for a very long time. The more they played, the more they felt themselves being pulled into the game, as if it was slowly draining their life force. They could feel themselves growing weaker with each passing moment, and they knew that time was running out. They had to complete the game, and they had to do it fast. But the game was not going to make it easy for them. The other players, the ones who had been trapped for centuries, were getting more aggressive, and the challenges they faced were becoming increasingly difficult. The friends began to argue and bicker amongst themselves, each blaming the others for their predicament. They were tired, hungry, and afraid, and they were starting to lose hope. It was then that they stumbled upon a clue, a small scrap of paper hidden within the game board. The clue led them to a hidden room, deep within the Lost Kingdom, where they found a mysterious artifact, a key that they believed could break the curse. But the key was guarded by a fearsome creature, a monster that seemed to be made entirely of shadows. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before, and they knew that they would have to work together if they had any hope of defeating it. The battle was fierce, but in the end, they emerged victorious. They had the key, and they knew that they were one step closer to breaking the curse. But the game was not going to let them go so easily. As they made their way back to the game board, they could feel a presence watching them, a malevolent force that was growing stronger with each passing moment. They knew that they had to act fast if they wanted to break the curse and escape the Lost Kingdom. With trembling hands, they inserted the key into the game board and turned it, hoping that it would work. There was a blinding flash of light, and suddenly they were back in the thrift store, standing around the game board. The game pieces had stopped moving, and everything seemed to be still. At first, the friends were relieved. They had made it out of the Lost Kingdom alive, and they had broken the curse. But as they looked around, they realized that something was wrong. The thrift store was empty. There were no other customers, no employees, nothing. It was as if they were the only ones left in the world. They tried to leave, but the door wouldn't budge. They were trapped, just like they had been in the game. And then they heard a voice, a cold and mocking voice that seemed to come from all around them. "Well done, players," the voice said. "You have broken the curse and escaped the lost kingdom. But you have also released me, and now I am free to roam the world once more." The friends looked at each other in horror. They had unwittingly unleashed a great evil upon the world, and now they would have to pay the price. The game was over, but the nightmare had just begun. The group of friends stood frozen, staring at the door as they tried to comprehend what was happening. It was as if the thrift store had become a vacuum, sucking everything else out of existence except for them and the cursed board game. Panic started to set in as they realized they were truly trapped. They searched the store for any other way out, but every window was covered in thick metal bars and the vents were too small for them to crawl through. The game board was still on the table, looking innocent enough, but they all knew better now. As the hours passed, their desperation grew. They tried everything they could think of to escape, but nothing worked. Hunger and thirst started to set in, and they knew they wouldn't last much longer without food or water. One friend suggested they try to play the game again, to see if it would transport them back to the lost kingdom where they could try to find another way out. The others were hesitant, but as time passed and their situation became more dire, they agreed to give it a try. They set up the board and began to play, hoping for some kind of escape. But as they played, they quickly realized that the game had changed. The pieces moved with an eerie precision, and the game itself seemed to be taunting them. The challenges were even more difficult than before, and the other players, the ones who had been trapped in the game for centuries, were even more aggressive. It was as if the game was punishing them for trying to escape. One friend, Jake, became increasingly erratic, insisting that they had to keep playing and that they couldn't give up. The others tried to reason with him, but he wouldn't listen. He was convinced that the game held the key to their escape and that they had to keep playing no matter what. As the game progressed, the group started to unravel. They turned on each other, they shouted and screamed, hurling insults and accusations as their sanity slowly slipped away. One friend, Alex, thought the key to escape was to take out all the others. He thought if he was the only one left, the game would end, and he would be free from this cursed game forever. While the others were bickering amongst themselves, Alex snuck up on them and started taking them out. The others were horrified and frozen with fear as Alex killed them all one by one. He was covered with blood and fell down, realizing what he had done. He smiled, a sensation of relief rushed over him now that the game was over. "Well done, Alex, I knew you were the one," the voice said. "You have proven your worth and will be my successor." There was a flash of light, and Alex realized he was in another world. Almost similar to the Lost Kingdom, but darker or more eerie. There was an old man, sitting on the biggest throne Alex had ever seen. But as he looked closer, he noticed the throne was made out of human flesh and bones, and at the top of the throne was the heads of his friends pierced with bones. "Welcome," the man said. "I am Yoko, the ruler of this world. And soon to be all yours. Let's get started, shall we?" Alex, with a twisted smile on his face, accepted the old man's request and was now the ruler of the Lost Kingdom. Alex lived the rest of his days trapping others inside the cursed board game, knowing that there was never a way to escape. Even if you end up winning,